now. All right, so I want to thank everybody for coming to the Associate Development Day Golf Operations. This is going to be focusing on level 3, but also anybody in level 1 or 2 should be joining in to see what they're going to be expecting in the future. We have Joe Franz from the Elkridge Club, as well as Mike Healy from Country Club of Maryland, and then Todd Salmons should be popping on soon, and he's the Director of Member Education down at the Learning Center in Florida. Also have Evan Lambert. He's an instructor with the Northeast Performance Institute and is a recently elected PGA member, so he can assist in any type of questions in regards to getting through the PGM bookwork and equally timing it during the season, or if you're in the off season, assisting in any testing questions or any video issues during lessons. But we'll kind of start it off. Mike and Joe, you can share the floor and just kind of both work together, or you can go every other slide. But this is basically going to be focusing on supervising and delegating while you're, operating the golf operations side of things, and when our assistants are growing and getting to higher responsibilities and bigger roles in a golf operation.
Sounds good.
All right. So what is the best way to supervise your staff throughout the day?
Joe, I'll take this one. So
Okay.
For me, I've always thought it was best to supervise, to manage by walking around. And I know that's a kind of basic premise, but basically it's tough to supervise or manage in your office. You can only do so much. So I try to get up and walk around, pat the guys on the back. If there's somebody who's doing something wrong, I'll try to, to give them some positive feedback, but then try to hit them with a little bit of the negative just to get them back on track. But especially bag room guys, and making sure customer service, where the rubber meets the road, which is our bag room for the most part, is on the straight and narrow. But for me, that's the best way, is just to get up and walk around and say hi to people and just give them some positive reinforcement.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. As head pros, we catch ourselves behind our computer too much in our office. We need to get out more and be with our staff and bag room staff and everybody and members. It's all about customer service.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that you use positive reinforcement, because there's a lot of employees that aren't going to be in the golf industry that just look at a summer job and they don't know if they're doing things right. And if you kind of increase their self-esteem, they'll work better, work harder, and perform tasks, and actually be able to take higher responsibility roles as they work throughout the golf operation. Now, do you supervise your staff a little differently during times of the year, maybe close to the beginning of the year or the end of the season, or early in the morning, near the evening?
I would say times of the year, yes. I mean, our busiest time of the year, we're going to supervise a lot more. Winter time, needless to say, 3-4 months of the season, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of supervising. We'll sort of give everybody sort of tasks to do through the winter and just follow up on those. But definitely in season, we're supervising a lot more with tournaments and special orders and just everything. So much busier. So many things can get dropped in season.
All right. Would you ever, like, near the end of the season, kind of push things towards the assistant professional staff to supervise the outside operations while, you're working towards figuring out next year's budget, or going through merchandising and inventory, doing open to buy plans or any office work or computer work, and kind of push some tasks on their side when you get to a less busier and hectic time of the year?
I would say, I'm sorry, go, Joe.
No, I actually do that now. I sort of have somebody in charge of overseeing doing all the scheduling for the bag room staff and making sure everything's going well with the bag room staff. So throughout the whole season, I sort of have 1 or 2 pros in charge of doing all that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, for me, and we'll probably hit this a little further down, but I've always given each one of my assistants areas of responsibility so they can own that area. So Ideally, I would have, like my 9-hole ladies group, 18-hole ladies group. I'd have men's twilight, women's twilight. I have my over event, I have merchandise, receiving. I have, all the different areas of responsibility we have. I would give each of them specific areas to basically own. So therefore, they take some pride when things go right, and if things go wrong, we'll try to get them back on track. But that way, you don't have any cross messages too. If something comes in with merchandise, you know that it's Jim's responsibility to open it up and check it in. And then when something happens with the schedule, you go to John, and John's the person in charge of the scheduling. So I always try to do it that way.
Excellent. All right. What is the best guidance and direction you offer to your staff?
Mike? The best guidance and direction to offer your staff, I would say positive. Anything positive, I think, is advantageous to morale, and let's face it. When you're an assistant, especially when you're a new assistant, you're trying to figure out whether this is something you want to continue to do, and you're not getting paid the most. So if it's something where you can give them positive reinforcement and give them a small task, something that they can knock out of the park, it helps build their self-esteem, and they can move on to bigger and better things.
All right. And do you think it's good to kind of have an open door policy for your office, from your assistant professional staff all the way down to just your backroom employees, your outside staff? I know Mike has that kind of policy with us, and I'm just curious if that goes down the line, just to kids working a summer job.
Absolutely, I think it's very important. Things sort of fester. If people aren't happy with something, things fester, and you don't want that. You want to nip in the bud early. So absolutely, open door policy is very important for all staff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Open door policy for all staff and members. I'm always an open book. Just come talk to me. I'm here for you.
Okay. And how do you kind of shift between an authoritative figure and just trying to build camaraderie, have some laughs with the staff, but still kind of show that you are an authoritative figure, and try to stay out of the friend zone, but still show that you're running the show, and you're a boss first, a friend second?
I think this is the toughest part of the business, to be honest with you. When you're in a supervisory role, you need to make sure that you establish that boss employee relationship, and then you can try in little parts to put in just kind of some laughs and things like that, so they know you're a real person. But I find that one tough. For me, I usually, and Joe will tell you, in my personal life, I don't take anything serious. But when it comes to work, I take pretty much everything serious. So I'm a little bit more towards the authoritative than I am towards the camaraderie. Whereas in real life, I'm the exact opposite. So I struggle with this one.
I think we all do.
Evan, was that similar to what Joe Connerton did at Hartford Golf Club when you were on the club professional side of things?
From the other side of things, I think that it all comes down to having respect for your supervisor, your boss, and also in a supervisory role, having respect for your employees as well. As long as there's that foundation of respect and an expectation of excellence that is continuously communicated, everyone's on the same page, and you know what's expected of you. I think that's the first step to creating a better relationship moving forward for everyone. So that's what I was looking for, and that's what I got from my prior supervisor, was this respect for what I was doing, but the knowledge that I was going to be held accountable every step of the way.
Excellent. Yeah, that's just a tough part of the business. You want them to respect you, but you want them to enjoy their time working, and you just want to fester away from just joking around, and then they think of you as an equal, and next thing you know, you're not getting the respect you deserve, or you're telling them to do a task and they just kind of push it aside because they're just like, you won't really get mad at me if I don't do it, or if I don't do it to the ability that he wants.
Yeah, I think if you're just the buddy, or if predominantly you're the buddy, their friend, I think you're going to have a tough time managing properly. I mean, let's face it, our job is customer service and making sure that our members are taken care of. And I think sometimes when people think they can get away with things, they do. So it's important to make sure that you have that respect. That was really well said, but you have that respect, and then you just expect excellence.
All right. Now we have 8 crucial. This is in the level 3 book work. We have 8 crucial supervisory skills, and I mean, if you see all the 8 of them, which ones would you like to kind of shed some light on that you kind of think is important to discuss at this point in time? We got communication, conflict resolution, leadership, critical thinking, interpersonal skills, time management, diversity in the workplace, and then problem solving. What are some key skills there that you'd like to discuss?
Well, I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go, Joe. No, you go, Joe.
You go.
I think that both Joe and I are very similar in part of our success has been in the interpersonal skills. That we talk to our members a lot. We know a lot about them. When we come, we greet them by name. We ask them how their son's doing and things of that nature. And it basically helps you develop a rapport with them to where you're almost family. And that's really important in a country club per se. It's maybe different than in a resort or a public golf course, but in a private club, I think that's the number one thing that keeps you going. I think that's the number one thing that endears you to them. I don't know. What do you think about that, Joe?
That's exactly what I was going to say. The interpersonal skills, I think, is definitely the most important from our end at a private club. No question. I think that the relationships we build are the most important thing.
And I hate this. And this is one thing I hate to say but I have to say it is I think that's being lost a little bit. When you look at pros of old, a lot of those guys were kind of slap you on the back guys. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you, Jimmy. And I think that's getting lost. I think there's a lot of guys out there taking it too seriously. It's important to understand everything else that's on that list. But I think when it comes down to it, personality, interpersonal skills is top of the heap. I think without that, you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to have a tough time going forward.
I absolutely agree.
Excellent.
And if I could jump in on that too, gentlemen, I completely agree with you. And the thing that worries me is the private country club may be the last bastion of the face-to-face conversation with all these screen times, with all the apps and ways to communicate that don't actually have you looking at someone and shaking someone's hand and talking problems out. This is so critical in our society these days that we're able to have face-to-face conversations and solve problems.
Very well said.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're bringing in like Golf Genius, and even with the restrictions we're having with COVID, and we're trying to utilize it where they don't grab scorecards, and they aren't coming into the shop using the handicap computer and everything. So we're just giving them their GGID number, and they can put their hole by hole score in. But we might just be doing that even after COVID and everything's all clear. They're able to do it on their phones just as a convenience, but then we lose that experience where they come into the shop to use the handicap computer and they talk about their round, and we're able to talk with them, and that can lead to future instruction, or we just learn about their game and are just able to small talk throughout the day when they come in. So it's some of this technology is pushing us away from just being able to have face-to-face conversations.
I couldn't agree more. I'm one of the last holdouts of, as I call it, on pencil starting time sheets, where I don't do it online. I've always enjoyed the interaction where you answer the phone and Mr. Smith's on the other end, and I've always enjoyed that. But I think those are days going by now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be tough the next couple of months too, with all the COVID restrictions that we're going to have. People are going to be shuttled onto the tee, boom, leave once you're off the property. So it's going to be important for us to get out on the course, like marshaling nonstop and just talking to the members and seeing how they're doing. And because it's going to be a whole new, this summer's going to be very interesting if we ever open.
If we ever open.
Yeah, and doing tee times online where they make their own tee times. Now that they're, instead of them calling and they say, "Oh, we just have a threesome for 8:00," and you're coming in for 12, you can just be like, "Oh, you mind if I join you? Are you looking for a fourth, or
right.
Would you want me to join up with you?" So you lose that kind of aspect of kind of arranging a game on a Saturday or Sunday morning where you get to play with the members. Now it's you see a threesome on the tee sheet, you'll wait until like the day before and just give them a call, seeing if they're looking for a fourth, or last minute you're
Right.
running up to the tee to join them, you know, you'll lose the aspect of warming up on the range with them, going to the putting green, and then head into the first tee. So I think that aspect might be lost too if you do, you know, online tee sheet.
Amen. Yep, I agree.
Yep.
Now, over at Country Club of Maryland and Elk Ridge, how do you define your supervising and management style?
I think Mike touched on it earlier. I think it's sort of task management. You give everybody on your staff certain things they're in charge of, and they take ownership in that. And I think Mike said it earlier. I think that's how I do it at Elk Ridge. It sounds like so Mike does at Country Club Maryland also.
Okay, and when you're pushing tasks to different assistants or different employees, how do you know you're giving the right task to the right employee? But I mean, it could be a job that a first assistant 15 years in the business may know, or assistant 2 years in the business may know. How do you know you're pushing the correct tasks onto that individual?
I think that's.
Go ahead.
Go, Joe. No, you go.
There you go.
This is like how we pay the bill at lunch. No, you get it. I get it. Okay. So I think part of that is it's important to kind of understand the individual before you assign that task. So, you know, right now I'm getting ready to assign tasks for this year. I was going to try and do it in March, but we realized this was coming on. But I think you kind of look at their strengths and weaknesses and assign a task. And if nothing else, they sink or fly based on those tasks you give them. So if nothing else, they learn from it. So it's not an easy thing to be able to do, but I think you try to go towards that. I would typically do my longer tenured staff in scheduling, maybe in tournament management, and I would do my shorter tenured staff in merchandise checking in and display and things of that nature. I would give them the things that are less specific, you know, like scorecards and cart signs and, you know, and starting time sheets and the things like that. So I would give that to the people who know what they're doing.
I also think for the weaker and newer staff members, we got to put them in the same situation, give them certain tournaments to do. It may not be my big tournaments, but get them to sort of work their way up the ladder too. So I think it's important to get everybody involved with everything, just not certain people and certain tasks. I'll sort of rotate the tasks for the different staff members.
That's the one part that I didn't put in there. Yeah, the rotation is important because you don't want to just get part of this is the education. You know, not a part of it; it's a big part of it. Not only running my operation, but it's hopefully educating my assistants to when they move on. But if you just have them in one supervisory role, that's all they learn. You know, we try to rotate these things on a regular basis. That's important.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, come on, computer. So motivating work, skill variety, designing assignments based on their strengths, whole task, allowing staff to complete tasks start to finish, and autonomy, allowing staff to decide best way to perform the task. So when you're pushing a task onto your assistant professional staff or your outside staff, first that task, how long are you going to have them doing that task, start to finish? Or you'll have them start, you'll check up on them, and then you'll complete the task. If that's, you know, sending communications out to the membership, if they're filling out a flyer and you say, okay, great, I'll take it from here. Or you kind of say, you know what, this is a task that has multiple ways of doing it. I'll let you take the reins, and however you want to do it, it's all on you, and just let me see it before you fully complete it, or we get it out on the course or out to the membership.
I would lay down the groundwork, you know, giving them a good, you know, synopsis of what I need done, and then I would expect them to take it from start to finish. I think that taking it all the way to the end is the best way to do any task.
And following up on it. I mean, checking in on it every once in a while too, just to make sure they're staying on task and doing the correct thing. So absolutely.
Always correct.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, prevent them from doing like unnecessary work or stopping them halfway through saying, oh, well, you actually have to do this now, and, you know, just preventing them from putting more work on themselves. And you know,
yeah, if they leave you know, if they leave the path early, it's tough to get them back on. So yeah, I think Joe hit it on the head. It's important to kind of check up on them during certain points of the task, depending on what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. How do you prevent yourself from micromanaging?
Joe?
Or do you think it's important to be micromanaging throughout the entire golf operation from open to close?
No, definitely
I find,
not good.
go, Joe.
You gotta let your employees roll with things, and I would only micromanage if more new employees that sort of need to. And so I think, yeah, I definitely think micromanaging is bad most of the time. You're gonna definitely have to do it sometimes, though. If
Yeah, I think if you've got a situation where you have like scorecards, or you have a starting time sheet, and something that's going to be relayed to the membership, if they're putting something in writing, I think at that point, micromanaging, making sure things are right before they're put out is a good time. But other than that, I think micromanaging puts them in a situation where they're not going to feel a whole lot of the ownership, and they're also going to be a little afraid that they're going to look over their shoulder every time at every turn to see if you're back there behind them. So I think you need to let them run a little bit.
Yep. Okay. And how do you provide feedback amongst your staff? You kind of answered this earlier, just checking up on them, walking around, the property, seeing what's being done. But if you wanted to kind of chime in on any of the bullet points I have, such as timing, clarity, having an unbiased opinion, or just basic performance reviews throughout the year. If you like to, a newly employed staff member, if you'd like to do 3 months and then one at the end of the year, and a tenured staff member, if you just want to give one right at the end of the year. If you want to, just a new assistant, if you just want to brush up on a few things just before the season starts, and just do a quick performance review the first month or first 3 months that they're there, just to kind of prevent certain personalities or certain related traits.
I think performance reviews are important. I always do a performance review at the end of each year to give a summary to each employee. But I think for a new employee, you would almost need one, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, just to make sure they're on track, because they're going to be looking at you saying, am I doing this right? So I think if you're giving them some positive reinforcement, and also, kind of getting them back on the track if they're a little bit off it, I think it helps them to be able to kind of run free once they get past that 90-day period. I think the first 90 days is really important.
I'd say I find the best way to get the feedback is try to do staff meetings at least once every couple of weeks. Get a lot of feedback, get everybody on the same page. If there's anything going wrong, we can settle it all there, all together. So the staff meetings I found have been huge.
Okay. Now, for instance, let's put the Green Spring Elkridge Invitational. So if anybody on this call, they might not know the Green Spring Invitational, but it's like a conjoined member guest between the Elkridge Club and Green Spring Valley Hunt Club. So one round's at Green Spring, one at Elkridge. We have food and beverage and parties going on at every other facility. But on your side of things, Joe, when do you have a staff meeting for that event? Do you have it like a couple weeks before, or do you just kind of discuss it throughout the year leading up to the event, maybe starting in May when the event's in late May?
Actually, we start discussing it in February, and I try to get this committee together too, as you know, try to get everybody on the same. Everything starts in February for that event, which is over Memorial Day weekend. So then we'll just touch up on things as we get closer. I mean, it's all about getting the invitations out. And once the invitations come in, then for tournament, Mike and I would get together with both of our staffs and just make sure everything's ready to go for the tournament part of it.
Yeah, for staff meetings, for me, I find it's important also if you can't get everybody together, which sometimes is tough to do, especially in a space without members or the phone ringing every 2 seconds. I think e-meetings are important, where you could just go ahead and lay out an outline of things and send it out and have good discussion back and forth when you don't have that time where you're just super busy.
Would you also think like right after work, like some pretty much throughout the course of my career, we've had about two nights where our staff would go out to eat at a restaurant just to enjoy ourselves and see ourselves outside of the golf course, and just talking to each other. Do you think that kind of atmosphere is good to just kind of go over what we're kind of expecting, or kind of things of that nature to just use that as a somewhat a nonchalant staff meeting, just over a couple drinks.
Absolutely. I've done that the last 2-3 years, and I think it's very, very helpful. We sit down, first of all, just fluff a little steam, have a cocktail, and talk about what the good things that have been going on, the things that aren't going so well, and how we can improve those things. And we get a lot of good feedback when we do these meetings, dinner meetings.
I agree. I think that's a great thing. We just haven't found a McDonald's that serves alcohol yet. So, but it's a pretty good thing.
Oh boy.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Been very helpful, very useful.
All right. So the other portion of their bookwork is food and beverage control. So majority of the bookwork in there, just they'll actually have to discuss with their executive chef or the assistant PM or the food and beverage director. But there is a portion in the bookwork that is designated for coordination amongst the golf staff and the food and beverage staff. So what do you think are the best ways in terms of communication amongst those two staffs? Because it's pretty much like a different entity. I've heard members being completely different people on the golf course and then at the restaurant. So they're experiencing, different opinions from members that you have different opinions about. So how do you kind of prepare and coordinate for a successful event prior to the event beginning or information going out?
At Elk Ridge, we have a weekly department head staff meeting. So we go over every event, whether it's food and beverage with it. So we coordinate and make sure everything is followed up on. So, and then I've got to take it back to my staff to let them know what's going on. So the weekly staff meetings, I would assume everybody does them, but I think the weekly department head meetings are very, very beneficial. Get everybody on the same page with everything, food and beverage and the golf operations.
Yeah, I would agree. We do the same thing. And I think you've got to tread lightly when you start talking about interaction between the food and beverage staff and the golf staff, because if you start dictating to them what you want done, I think you can come up with some problems. I think the good go-between there is the general manager, and in staff meetings is a great time to be able to lay out these things and make sure everybody's on the same page. But I think if you start trying to manage them, or if they start trying to manage you, I think feathers can be a little ruffled, so it can be a bad situation.
Okay, and throughout just like the course of the week, how often are at your facility do you find yourselves in the clubhouse while the ladies are having lunch or the men are having drinks and you're there announcing the results of the event? How often do you find yourselves either joining in on their luncheons or having drinks with them and kind of experiencing what they experience on the food and beverage side of things?
Do that a lot. Probably, almost every event when everybody gathers, we go back and do the results and talk to everybody. Again, it's like Mike said earlier, it's building the camaraderie with the membership, building the rapport. And that goes a long way when we're up, just not at the golf, but when they're doing any kind of event up in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I think that's important. I do that quite often. Anytime our ladies, after the 9-hole ladies or 18-hole ladies, I'll walk over there and just at their lunch, once they all get in there, I'll just say hi and ask how their day went. And, into our back bar where most of the men gather after a round, I'll just go over and wave, just walk from table to table and make sure everything's good. But I think that's a great place where everybody's guard is down. They're not getting ready to play golf. They're coming back in. They're a little bit more laid back. It's a great way to kind of, to build a rapport.
Now, Evan, when you were over at Hartford, I know that they were kind of on the very wealthy side of things in terms of a very kind of exclusive club. Did you find yourself going into the clubhouse or the dining room frequently, or did your outside scoring, was that your interaction and then you just went into the restaurant, gave the announcements, and they expected you to just kind of duck out of there? What was the life like over at Hartford Golf Club?
I always kept my interactions with the membership to be more on the professional side. There were a couple unwritten rules where staff weren't allowed to go sit down in the grill room. If you played a round of golf and you got invited to sit down for water or soda, some people did it. I always chose not to, just to make sure that I was keeping my professional life separate from personal. That's just my own personal opinion and my own way of doing it. But in terms of when you're scoring, you go as you're walking by, establish those interpersonal relationships with your members. As Mike and Joe were saying, it's so important that every opportunity to build and strengthen a relationship will only help you in the long run, especially as a head professional. And just a quick note on this, Jeff, and the food and beverage. If I can make one recommendation to all the associates there, do not delay in scheduling your meetings with your general manager, your food and beverage manager, or your head chef. Because if you're coming up on these timelines, you've got to be aware that their schedules are very, very busy as well. So schedule them well in advance so that you're not up against it when you're going up with your book work deadlines. That would be a recommendation from me.
That's a great point, Evan. Very good point.
Excellent. Yeah. And I can just reiterate with the information that you need in your book work. Just communicate with your executive chef or, food and beverage director. Just try to have a meeting for an hour at their convenience, and just kind of ask them all the questions you need in terms of getting through your book work. These questions might be some that you'll only answer now and you'll never have to kind of use it, but it's going to be helpful if your career kind of takes a turn and you decide to be a GM, a director of golf, or you're at a facility where your responsibilities are going to change. So you might say, oh, I'm really not going to need all this information, but take it in stride and understand that 10 years from now you're actually going to use this information. You're going to need to know how to budget some food and beverage costs, or what to expect on that budget side of things with food and beverage, and not just golf operations too. So also understand that you never know when your career might take a turn and you might be a GM.
I think that's a really good point. I think in all aspects of the golf operation, you should be a sponge. Especially if you're an assistant and you're not really sure where your path is going to wind up. But just be a sponge, soak it all up. The more you know, the more valuable you are to your employer or your firm or your future employer.
Yeah, you see a lot of sales reps who were assistant pros or head professionals in the business, and then they became sales reps, or sales reps that ended up becoming golf professionals. They started in a certain aspect of the industry and they move around. Sometimes people get out of the business, or it's a second career choice where they were an accountant, didn't like the job. They wanted to be outside, hated being in a cubicle. They loved the game of golf, and they turned that into a career. So it's good to know all different aspects of an operation and how it's run. Now, involving the PGA experience with being in the clubhouse, but also in the golf shop, they suggest greet, listen, assess, offer, follow through, and make an extra effort. Is this pretty much a goal of your staff while you're running your operation? And that's what, they expect. The second a member gets off a property, seeing what they expect throughout the day and what their day entails. And then, if there's an opportunity for them to make an extra effort, is it worth making that extra effort in the long run, depending on what that may be in terms of going the extra mile, when to know, okay, it is worth doing this. It might just be a waste of time. But how do you kind of use this PGA experience for your staff to understand how to excel and give your membership the best experience possible?
I would say, like Joe was saying earlier, that everything we do is all about customer service. So I would say everything on here is all day, every day. Making the extra effort is expected. I wouldn't say it's even considered an extra effort. I would say that you go to every effort you possibly can make. Listen is an important one. I think a lot of people have a tendency to want to turn on the mouth and turn off the ears. It should be the exact opposite. Turn on the ears and turn the mouth off, and just listen for a little while. You'd be surprised what you can hear and learn. But I think these are all important things to go through on a daily basis every day.
Very well said. That's perfect. I totally agree.
Excellent. Now, Evan, I'm going to throw the floor over to you. If you can give everybody like a kind of a brief summary of your career and how you got into the golf business as a club professional, and then how you got onto the teaching side of things, what basically made you decide you wanted to become a teaching professional, what you wanted to do in the future, and just how you got into the business, where you worked, things of that nature?
Well, first off, I came to the golf business a little bit later. I was a classroom teacher for 5.5 years. My bachelor's degree was in music education. So I came to golf as a second career and really just fell in love with it. Just working operations at a private country club, I fell in love with this lifestyle and then decided to make a career shift. So in my whole dealings with the PGM program, I looked at it as this was my last shot to really create something great for myself. So that's what kept me motivated in terms of my book work and getting it through and getting it done on time. And I don't think I even did a really great job at that. It took me the better part of 4 years to do it, and I could have done it sooner. So my heartfelt recommendation to everyone is to not sit on it, not waste time. It is worth it in the end to get through, to see that you've been elected and to feel that pride. It's something that I can't describe. And I just look online and see a lot of posts that are bashing the PGA, saying, why is it worth it? Why do we need it? And I can tell you from a personal experience, they couldn't be any more wrong. There are so many great aspects to being a PGA member. So my journey took me to Hartford Golf Club, which is a private country club, for 4 years. And in that time, I graduated slowly but surely up in responsibility, running the Women's Golf Association for 2 years, having some opportunities to run male tournaments as well. And what I found towards the end of my tenure is that being an education major and having taught in classrooms, I realized that my true passion was in junior golf. And my supervisor, my head professional, told me, he said, you have to find your niche, and you have to find what drives you every day and makes you passionate, that makes you excited to go to work. Now, tournament operations were not the most exciting thing for me at my end of my tenure. So I took a strong look at myself and said, what would really benefit me the most, and what could I give my everything to, all of my energy, all of my passion? And that's what made me look into teaching and coaching as a full-time job. It's frightening and scary, to be honest with you. We have a brand new business that opened up this year right as the COVID-19 scare happened. So we're out of business right now, but I don't regret the decision to take a chance on myself and to find what really drives me and motivates me and makes me want to be better every single day. So I encourage all of you to not think about the traditional head professional, assistant professional, the way, director of golf, the normal way of doing things, but what drives each individual person? What drives you, and what do you love about golf the most, and how can you go and make a career about it? That's basically my biggest recommendation based on my own experiences. And your head professional will be able to help guide you and should see your strengths, should see your weaknesses, and have an honest conversation. But if you're not ready to have an honest conversation with yourself and figure out what makes you tick and what drives you every day, you're going to find yourself stuck in a rut that just keeps perpetuating, and you're going to fall out of love with this business. And there's too much to love in this business, I think, to not be truly passionate. I don't know if that answered your question, Jeff. I kind of went on a
It did. It kind of showed what brought you into the industry, and then that change, that big change that you went from the club professional side to the teaching side. My boss, Mike Atkins, went from the teaching side, working at the Jim McLean School. He opened up a school down in Florida, and then he just decided he wanted to get out of the teaching aspect, but still be a great golf instructor for members. And then he got into the club professional side, working down in Florida, and then over at Fisher's, and then came up to Maryland. But he's very strong suited in almost every aspect of the industry, and he's a great teaching professional. So that's something that can be a positive, and also just something that a board or a committee can look at, and they can see, oh, he's a great instructor, so he has this good strength for our membership, versus just getting a club professional who's good at running tournaments and merchandising and inventory. He has another great quality that we're looking for in a professional. So it's incredible that you're doing this venture and becoming a teaching professional. I think it's awesome, and you were great with those kids. You followed the new industry trend with Operation 36. I saw all your Instagram posts and, use of social media, and it seemed like it was a great success. You won your division in the PGA Junior League, primarily against me. But I mean,
There's no bad blood there, Jeff.
especially on our home course too. That was even more rough. But other than that, I mean, you're great with the kids. So just being able to have different qualities and different aspects of the business that you're familiar with. And it was great that you worked with ladies too, because now you can relate to them if you run a ladies golf kind of clinic at the Northeast Performance Institute. If you have something geared towards the ladies to get them into it, if you decide, there might be some sort of similarity with Operation 36 and with new ladies getting into the business or getting into the game, not the business, getting into the game, that would kind of assist in bringing more people into the club and just playing more and utilizing the facilities more, just getting them into the game. It's great, and I'm proud of you. And it is a great feeling to have the 3 letters after your name too. It is a great feeling. All right. Does anybody else on the call? Let's see who we have. Scott, Tyler, Valerie. Do you have any questions for Joe, Mike, or Evan, or Todd? I don't think Todd's on the call, but anything in terms of your work experience portfolio or your capstone simulation that you have with us? Anything you'd like to discuss? Check the chat.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but definitely jotting down some notes here. So this is good stuff so far for sure.
Excellent. And once again, Tyler, I want to thank you for you were in all these meetings so far, and I saw you jotting down notes, and I'm glad you're taking part of this. Appreciate you expanding your knowledge. I think it's great. It's good to see a familiar face.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all of you guys doing this and hosting these, and the input, everyone jumping on. It's definitely appreciated.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I'm gonna discuss with Scott. Scott, I'll give you a call or shoot you an email in regards to capstone and simulation, just because it's a very in-depth question, and I can also push you over to Todd Salmons as well. But it is for 3.0 and 2.0 as well. It's looking at Pine Valley or Saguaro Sands and I believe Pine Valley for capstone simulation, showing a private non-equity facility versus a public equity facility, and just trying to work through a budget and checking a SWOT analysis, things of that nature. But other than that, Joe and Mike, is there anything else you'd like to add to this discussion?
Joe, anything?
No, just Roy, be safe. Hopefully we're all back to work here soon.
Yeah, and let's try to utilize all these Zoom conferences. I think it's great that we're doing this, and there's a lot of participation along those lines. And I want to thank you for donating your time to speak with us. Evan, thank you very much for dressing up in a jacket and tie for us.
Bad.
But other than that, I wish everybody the best, and hopefully the courses in Maryland open up soon. But everybody take care, and associates, good luck with your bookwork. If there's any assistance you need, don't hesitate to call the mentorship program down in Port St. Lucie, or just shoot somebody an email who's a now recently elected PGA member, because they might have a similar question or a similar issue that you might have. But other than that, thank you very much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Good job,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Christine, thank you for all your assistance.
Of course. Happy to help.